Hey students, welcome back. This is Mr. Johnson. This short video is going to cover Lesson 5.01, which is your Introduction to Spreadsheets. Obviously, you want to make sure that you read through the introduction, you read through the lessons, you watch the video, and you attempt the practice. And what I'm going to focus on right now is just the task, okay? So for the task for Lesson 5.01, it tells you to set up a worksheet to add the estimated startup cost for a pretend business in which you created a registration form in the last unit. You can pick the names of the costs and estimate an amount for each. And it gives us some examples here. So for example, equipment $150, printing $20, supplies, etc. But the key thing here is that you're just estimating what potential startup cost would be for a new business that you're creating. It tells you to look at the 5.01 rubric to see how it's going to be graded. And what I've done is I've just pulled it up right here. And mine's a little bit smaller. I made mine a little bit smaller just for this purpose. But it essentially tells you how you're going to be graded. So, for example, if you want to receive all points, you want to make sure that you do everything here in this column. So, the first thing is going to be whether or not your spreadsheet has a title. Does the title have larger font? Is it bold? Is it merge and center? And did you use a creative name for the title of your business? Okay, so I'm going to do that here in a second. And then the next thing is going to look at whether or not you listed out cost. Okay, did you at least include 6 startup costs that that you anticipate running into when starting a business, guys? And don't overthink it. I mean, it can be very simple. Equipment, printing, gas, advertising, whatever, right? But just keep it very simple. And then it's going to make sure that you have consistent formatting throughout this area, and that you use the currency style, which I'll do here in a second. And that you use legitimate, expense cost names, and that you have your decimals lined up, okay? And if you do all these things, you'll get the maximum points here, which will be 30 points for this section. And then down here, it's going to say, it's asking us to include a formula, okay? So it wants us to use the word total before we total up everything, and then to use a correct formula that totals up all of our expenses to give us a totaled expense. And again, it wants to make sure that we use consistent formatting. Okay, so all of these elements, this is pretty much how you're going to maximize your grade right here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and open up an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm quickly going to do this to show you an example. All right, so in order to merge and center your title, what I'm going to do is click on cell A1, and I'm going to left click on cell A1. And while I'm holding down the mouse, the left click, I'm going to drag it across to highlight. Let's see, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows or 6 columns. Okay. I'm then going to select Merge and Center, which merges these cells together. All right, and I'm going to enter my my business name. I'll just call it Mr. J's Grass Service. Okay. Now I've merged and centered it. Right. Everything looks good, but if I want to get all the points for this section, I need to look back at my rubric, okay? And again, it tells me I need to make sure my title has larger font, that it's bold, it's merged and centered, and I used a creative name. So really the two things I need to do now are just bold and make it a larger font. All right, so I'm going to bring back up my spreadsheet, and I'm going to make it bold. All right, notice how it's bold now. And I'm going to increase the size. Now I could do that right here. Right, I could click on 2, 4, 6, 16, 18, whatever, or I could use this increase font size right here option. But I'm just going to go ahead and use this, so I'm going to increase this to 20. Okay, so now this particular font size is 20. It's bold, it's merged and centered over these 6 columns, and it's somewhat of a creative name. So I'm going to get all the points for this section right here. Okay. The next section, I need to list out at least 6 items that I'm going to anticipate when starting up my business. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to pause the video real quick while I enter these in, and then I'll start it back up. All right, so I've added in my expenses that I anticipate having to spend money on to start this business up. And I went ahead and added basically two titles right here in cell A3 and in cell B3. Okay, one is for items, which is what I'm spending money on, and then I'm going to give a dollar expense to these as well. But what I'm going to do real quick is just to make these look nice, these titles right here, I'm going to left click, okay, right here, and I'm going to make this one bold and underline, and then I'm going to do the same to this one, bold and underline. All right, if I wanted to do all that together, just so you know, I can left click and drag over and then select bold underline. Okay. All right, and if you'll notice right here that advertising, the word advertising and the word weed eater, they spill over into the B column, okay, in the column B. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the width of this column just a little bit to give myself some room. All right, so now I'm going to enter in some expenses, so I'm just going to throw some numbers out there. I'm going to say that I'll spend $500 on advertising, I'll spend $4,000 on a mower, I'll spend $200 on gas, I'll buy a nice weed eater with accessories, so I'll say $500. I'm going to do a decent trailer, so I'll say $2,800, and then clothes, and I'll anticipate spending $200 on clothes. Okay. Now, I've essentially done almost everything I need to do for this section, but if I pull back up that rubric, I'll notice here that it tells me it wants me to use a currency style. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, and you should have learned this in the lesson, all right, so I need to change these into, or the format of these cells into the currency format. So I'm going to left click right here, all right, and I'm going to hold down the left click and drag down to select all these cells, to select this range of cells B4 through B9. And I'm going to come up here where it says number, in this number area. I'm going to select the drop down arrow, and then right here I see currency. Okay, if you don't have this option to change it to currency right here, you can click on the launcher icon right here in the number category and then select currency right here. But either way, okay, I want you to do that so that you're applying the correct format. All right, so if you've done this, you've literally earned all points that you could possibly earn right here in this category, okay? And the last thing is that it wants us to include the word total and then total up all the items that we're using right here. All right, so what I may do is, let's say down here I'll type the word total, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and format total just like I did up here. So I'm going to make it bold, okay? So bold and underlined. And then right here I'm going to enter a formula. Well, in this lesson you guys learned how to enter formulas. You learned how to enter basic formulas. And remember, formulas always start with an equal sign, okay? So there's two things that I'm going to do here to show you. Either way is acceptable. Okay, the first way is I'm going to do sort of what I would call the long formula. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that I've clicked on this cell right here. In this case, it's B11. I'm going to come up here into the formula bar and I'm going to type equals, and then I'm either going to literally type the word or the word B4 because it's for this cell right here, or I could click on this cell. Watch what happens when I click on this cell. It automatically types it for me. So B4, all right, plus B5 plus B6 plus B7 plus B8 plus B9. And once I press enter, it's going to add up all of those expenses for me. So this would be the total amount that I'm going to spend on the startup expenses for my business. Okay. If I wanted to do it a shorter way, all right, if I wanted to do it a shorter way, I'm going to delete this real quick and show you a shorter way. Okay, so if I click right here, I can use what's called the auto sum button, which is up here, and I'm going to click on sum. Okay, and sum adds these for me. So I want to make sure that I'm selecting the right range, and if you notice, it's selected this blank cell right here, so I'm going to change that just by left clicking and holding it down and dragging down. Okay, then I'm going to press enter, and it does the same thing for me. It's just sort of a shorter way if you don't want to keep hitting plus, plus, plus. So that would, if I were to do this, okay, if I were to do everything, or if you were to do everything you've just seen right here, you're going to have a full points for this particular activity. Okay, so hopefully this video's helped. If you have any questions, let me know.